We now know the full lineups for the Elimination Chamber matches. The WWE Universe gave AJ Styles a lovely send-off, and Liv Morgan has chosen her WrestleMania opponent. All this and more in this episode of This Week in WWE, What Mattered. The American Nightmare Cody Rhodes opened SmackDown by saying his trademark, "What do you want to talk about?" but he was almost instantly interrupted by Jacob Fatu, who told Cody, "I had you and Sammy beat last week, but my concern isn't with you, it is with Drew." SmackDown General Manager Nick Aldis then came out and said that he'd given Drew McIntyre the night off. However, it transpired that Drew had booked a luxury suite up at the top of the arena so he could watch the show, where he pulled out a microphone and said various things, including accusing Jacob Fatu of being all bark and no bite. This sent Fatu spiralling. He tried to jump the barricade and run through the crowd up to Drew McIntyre, but he was held off by WWE officials. He did attack a few of them, but Nick Aldis was able to eventually talk him down. And this is still quite a funny dynamic that I can see with the general managers on the opposing shows. You've got Nick Aldis on SmackDown, who seems really in control of his show. Despite the chaos, he always seems like he can smooth things over. Whereas we've got Adam Pearce over on Raw, who's constantly having a mental breakdown and has got no idea what's going on and just lets stuff happen. Next up, Tama Tonga defeated Ilya Dragunov in a singles match, following numerous instances of MFT interfering, to continue this little push that Tama Tonga's been getting lately. We then saw a video package from the Wyatt Six, where Uncle Howdy said to Solo that you use your family as a crutch and that it is time to stand on your own. I'm still not massively invested in this storyline like I've said previously, but it's good to see they're at least trying. It feels a little bit less recycled now. Seeing Uncle Howdy going down the route of accusing Solo of using his family as tools, and seeing how Solo is going to react to that, and maybe how that might create some distrust within the MFTs, is an interesting way to go. The WWE Women's Champion Jade Cargill then cut a promo where she announced that she was going to be going to Monday Night Raw, as Liv Morgan is going to be making her decision on who she's going to face at WrestleMania. And she went on to say, if Liv does pick Stephanie Vaquer, it doesn't matter who walks out of Elimination Chamber with the win, as she is going to leave WrestleMania still as the WWE Women's Champion, as, and I quote, "I'm still that bitch." There was then a brief altercation between Jade and Charlotte as Jade made her way backstage and Charlotte was making her entrance onto the ramp, potentially foreshadowing a future feud between the two. Charlotte was making her way to the ring as she had a triple threat match against Kiana James and Nia Jax to find out which one of them was going to qualify for the Women's Elimination Chamber match. This was a really entertaining bout, and we saw Charlotte Flair hit a Spanish fly on Kiana James from the top rope, who did kick out at 2, but it was a little bit dubious as to whether she kicked out on time. You could tell in the crowd there was a little bit of controversy because people weren't convinced she necessarily kicked out at 2. But the match ended with Charlotte Flair locking in the figure 4 leg lock on Nia Jax, and then as she bridged into the figure 8, Kiana James slipped back into the ring, then used her knees to pin Charlotte's shoulders to the ground and get the win. Massive upset here. The ending was a little bit botched as well, because it did take a little bit long for Kiana to get her knees onto Charlotte's shoulders and to make the 3 count, which doesn't look great when it's supposed to be a really quick thinking manoeuvre at the end of the match. However, it is good to see her qualify for the Women's Elimination Chamber match. It was a big surprise to me, as I absolutely did not expect her to qualify ahead of Nia Jax and Charlotte Flair, so it's good that she's going to get her chance to shine in the Elimination Chamber. There was then another short backstage segment with this mystery crate and Nick Aldis that clearly needs to be opened at the Elimination Chamber. Nick took one look at it and said, send it back to Raw for Adam Pearce to deal with, and that was that. But one of the best segments of the night was a backstage altercation between Cody Rhodes and Sami Zayn, as Sami said that he was frustrated that he came to Cody's aid when Drew was attacking him, yet Cody took advantage of the situation, hit him with a crossroads and qualified for the chamber match. And whilst Cody did nothing wrong, it is a morally grey thing to do, especially for a babyface, to take advantage of that situation, especially against a friend like Sami. But Cody really fought back here with a lot of fire behind his words, saying that he took advantage of an opportunity, and that is why Sami has not been WWE Champion. Which of course cut deep into Sami, and as Cody walked off, Sami started slamming things and smashing bottles around. But shortly afterwards, he did turn around and come back to apologise to Cody. I really enjoyed this segment because it's made this Sami Zayn underdog thing a little bit more interesting. I know the general fan base is getting a bit sick of the underdog Sami Zayn story. At this point, he's a well-decorated superstar, so you can't keep billing him as this underdog forever and ever. I think it's much better to go down this route of he won't go to the length that he needs to go to become a world champion. Kind of like we saw him do in the past with that feud with Karrion Kross, which ultimately went nowhere because Kross was promising to bring this dark side out of Sami that he knows is in there, but Sami just never went with it. And this was a much better side of Cody too. He's so much better and more entertaining as the chaser rather than the champion, and just the way he acted here and his actions by taking advantage of the situation to qualify for the Elimination Chamber match seems to very subtly be foreshadowing a heel turn for Cody, which I know a lot of people are clamouring for. But let's be honest, as much as I do prefer long-term storytelling generally in pro wrestling, Triple H seems to be absolutely obsessed with it, so for all we know, Cody might turn heel in a month, he might turn heel in 3.5 years. or it just might never happen. There was then a triple threat match between Damian Priest, Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams to determine who was going to qualify for the men's Elimination Chamber match. The closing sequence of this match saw Carmelo Hayes leap off the top rope, but Damian Priest clocked him with a brutal right hand to the chin. But as he went for the razor's edge, Trick Williams hit Damian Priest with 2 trick shots to pin him and book his spot in the Elimination Chamber match. I think this was absolutely the right call. Carmelo Hayes is already doing great things with the United States Championship, so you don't really need to worry about him so much. And out of Trick Williams and Damian Priest, Trick is definitely the better choice to be in this match. Despite his relatively short time on the main roster, the audience really loves him, and it's going to be great to give him this big spotlight in the Elimination Chamber. Rhea Ripley then faced Julia in a singles match, but this was quickly ruined by Nia Jax and Lash Legend, who are now going by the Irresistible Forces, ahead of their match next week for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships against Rhea Ripley and Io Sky, the latter of which did come to Rhea's aid. And the main event of SmackDown saw Randy Orton facing Aleister Black, after a previous backstage segment where Aleister was trying to bring out the true dark character of Randy Orton on the inside, referring to his previous actions where the punt kick was commonplace in his arse. This was a relatively short match, which ended with Drew McIntyre hitting Randy Orton over the head with the WWE Championship outside of the referee's view, and Aleister Black hitting Randy with a black mass to pick up the win. It wasn't very clear why Drew attacked Randy specifically and not Aleister Black. I can only assume because he thinks Randy is a bigger threat in the Elimination Chamber match, which I would agree with. If you have enjoyed this video so far, please do consider subscribing to the channel, hitting that bell for notifications, or doing absolutely anything you can to support me. You can also leave a comment below, like the video, or maybe just tune in next week for the next episode. Raw opened up emanating from Atlanta, Georgia, where Michael Cole and Corey Graves introduced the show as a tribute to the phenomenal AJ Styles, but they were soon interrupted by Gunther, the man who ended his career. Gunther received a lot of heat for the crowd, as he explained that he thinks it's disgraceful that there are celebrations for losers such as Bill Goldberg, John Cena and AJ Styles. General Manager Adam Pearce came out and tried to make Gunther leave, but as usual, he has really no power over the roster. He brought out his security team, but in the end, Gunther left of his own accord, looking very, very smug. But as he was making his way out of the arena, Gunther was attacked by Dragon Lee, both on the entrance ramp and again backstage, further continuing their feud and setting up a singles match between the two next week on Raw. Cody Rhodes then made his way out to the ring, and he was at Raw to celebrate AJ Styles' career, but he was shortly interrupted by The Vision, with Logan Paul proclaiming that they are also going to be running SmackDown once Bronson Reed wins the Elimination Chamber match and goes on to become WWE Champion. And this led straight into the Elimination Chamber qualifying match between Bronson Reed, the original El Grande Americano, and Jey Uso. At the start of the match, Jey and El Grande worked together to neutralise Bronson Reed, which was the smart strategy, and we saw a good back and forth between those two for a little while. However, as Bronson broke up a pinfall, we could see the referee make the X sign, which indicates a legit injury, and Bronson rolled out of the ring. Now, I know a lot of the fans these days are smartened up to that, so a lot of people know that the referee making that sign means it's a legitimate injury, which means WWE have used it in the past as part of a work, but it turns out this was a legitimate injury, and Jey Uso and El Grande had to finish this match on the fly. And I do understand it's difficult to improvise in times like this, but it does feel like this could have been done a little bit better. I appreciate it's going to take the referees and medical a little bit of time to figure out whether it's a legit injury and whether Bronson can continue, but in that time all Jey Uso really did was look a little bit confused and was unsure on what to do, and I feel like somebody in his position who's been around for as long as he has should have improvised probably a little bit faster than that. But then again, I am probably picking nits here. I do like Jey Uso, I just think it's a relatively fair criticism to make in the situation. Jey did get the win though, following a spear and an Uso splash, meaning that the final lineup for the men's Elimination Chamber match is LA Knight, Randy Orton, Cody Rhodes, Javon Evans, Trick Williams and Jey Uso. Then Dominic Mysterio and 2026 Women's Royal Rumble winner Liv Morgan came to the ring, where Liv was going to announce her chosen opponent for WrestleMania 42. Both women's champions made their way to the ring, and Liv first addressed Stephanie Vaquer, saying that her words hit deep last week and that she really did not appreciate her story. She didn't know how hard Stephanie had to fight to get to WWE, and she apologised, before saying that it's time for her to focus on her story. And with that being said, she turned around slowly to Jade Cargill, made it look like she was just about to start speaking to her, before turning around and quickly hitting Stephanie on the head with the microphone, clearly indicating that she is picking La Primera as her opponent for WrestleMania 42, so it will be Liv Morgan challenging Stephanie Vaquer for the Women's World Championship in Las Vegas. This is absolutely the right choice, it's the right opponent for Liv. From a kayfabe point of view, Liv's character would be absolutely stupid to pick Jade Cargill Cargill as the machine that she is, and by no means is Stephanie an easy opponent, but there's obviously a lot more storyline there, particularly after that really hard-hitting promo from Stephanie last week, where she questioned Liv's work rate and said that she had everything handed to her. We saw an interesting conversation backstage between the Judgment Day as Finn Balor and JD McDonough made up following their little argument last week, but there was still tension between Finn and Dom, as Dom was asking them for help and calling them both out for not helping him when he needed it, but Finn retorted by saying that he'd been a little bit busy trying to focus on becoming a world champion. We then saw the mystery crate backstage again, where Adam Pearce said that him and Nick Aldis will open it together live at the Elimination Chamber. I've honestly got absolutely no idea what is inside this crate. If it turns out to be a person, and maybe it's a returning Chris Jericho or something, it could be anyone, but if it does turn out to be a debut or a return, I'm going to find it absolutely hilarious, because that means from a kayfabe point of view, someone's been shut in a crate and been shipped back and forth all over the country for a few weeks just to finally pop out at the Elimination Chamber. There was then an appearance by the Beast Brock Lesnar, flanked by his longtime advocate Paul Heyman, who hyped up Brock's match at WrestleMania by saying WrestleMania used to have two main events. You had the title match and you had the Undertaker's streak match. And that was until Brock broke the streak back at WrestleMania 30, effectively taking that second main event spot and saying that Brock has issued an open challenge to anyone in the locker room for WrestleMania 42. They showed his upcoming appearances on Raw, where he is going to be showing up for a few weeks in a row, and said that nobody is going to be brave enough to challenge him and take him on at the show of shows. I am interested to see who's going to take up this challenge, especially if it does end up being Obafemi, because we did see Obafemi very shortly before the segment backstage, so we know he was there and in the building. So if it turns out that it is Obafemi, I'll be questioning why he didn't just make his way to the ring at this time as the open challenge was issued. There was then another triple threat match to determine the final spot in the Women's Elimination Chamber match between Io Sky, Raquel Rodriguez and Kairi Sane. Io had Raquel perfectly placed for an over the moonsault, but Kairi Sane pushed her off the top rope and then went for an insane elbow of her own. However, Raquel did get her boots up and hit Kairi with a Tahana bomb to pick up the victory and book her place in the Women's Elimination Chamber match, meaning that the full lineup for the women's match is Tiffany Stratton, Alexa Bliss, Rhea Ripley, Kiana James, Asuka, and Raquel Rodriguez. Raw then ended with AJ Styles coming to the ring and speaking from the heart, talking about his career, thanking those that he's worked with along the way, but specifically talking about the love he has for his family, and in particular his wife. This was a really lovely moment with the crowd singing "Thank you, AJ" along the way, and just as AJ was wrapping up and the show was about to end, we heard the instantly recognisable gong of The Undertaker, who made his way out to the ring on a motorcycle to inform AJ that he is the newest inductee into the 2026 WWE Hall of Fame. And it seemed like AJ was legitimately shocked by this. I don't think he knew this was coming, and you could see just how happy he was at the end when Undertaker told him the news. And just to wrap up this video, I want to say thank you, AJ Styles. I came back to watching WWE in 2018, and that was the first time I was exposed to AJ. He was then the WWE champion and had a great run. I think the most memorable feud that he had for me with that title was against Samoa Joe, who made things very personal. And I've enjoyed watching AJ ever since. It's been a privilege to watch him over the years, and I'm fortunate enough to have been able to see him perform in person. And not only did I get to see him in person, I got to see him in person in France, the most electric pro wrestling crowd of all time. I was there at that episode of Monday Night Raw in Paris. We were singing the Il est vraiment AJ Styles song as he made his way to the ring, and we sang it continuously through the entire ad break, and when Raw came back on air, we were still singing it. We went for about 10 minutes flat. It was absolutely crazy, and AJ Styles deserves nothing less. So thank you as always for watching today's video. If you have enjoyed it, please tune in again next week for the next episode, but I will just leave you with some footage from Monday Night Raw in Paris, where we were singing and showing our love for AJ Styles. But until next time, see you later.